The Texans was a 1941 Western. It starred William Holden and Glenn Ford. I've actually talked about this once. I did a video and then was going to put it together, and I realized it was a little too short. There was probably more that I could have said about the film. Because it was a decent Western. It wasn't the greatest, but I did enjoy it, and I think it's worth checking out. William Holden, of course, you know, I'm always watching his films. He's great, you know, Stalag 17 and Sunset Boulevard and so on. And seeing him paired up with Glenn Ford, another great actor who's been in like dozens of movies. I mean, obviously, Courtship of Eddie's Father, Gilda, and of course, playing Superman's dad in the 1978 Superman movie. So I always enjoy seeing like two really good actors pair up with each other in a film like this. So the story is basically, and just to kind of step back for a second, okay, the film is called Texas, but let's just establish the film really has very little to do with like, you know, the Alamo or San Jacinto or Goliad or, you know, Stephen Austin or any of that stuff. Instead, it's just situated in Texas. It's a Western with cowboys, but I guess it was easier to call it Texas instead of calling it The Adventures of Two Virginians Who Wind Up in Texas and Get Involved with Cattle Rustling and so on. Texas is a nice abbreviation. Well, anyhow, the film starts off with, it was almost a comedic beginning, really, because you got these two guys, William Holden and Glenn Ford. They're kind of down on their luck. They need to get some money so that they can get to Texas. And the way they do it is William Holden gets into some sort of a boxing match where he's going to make some money going a number of rounds against this big boxer guy doing the old-fashioned thing with the mustache. You know, he looks like a character from Nintendo Punch-Out or something. So they go like, I think it's 40 rounds, and eventually they get their money and they leave and they make their way to Texas. Okay, and I'm going to just kind of walk through some of the key points of the plot here. As they're traveling through Texas, we're still early in the film. They see a stagecoach get robbed. So they intercept the people who did the robbery and try to take the money back. But as they're doing this, the sheriff and his deputies show up, and it's all sorts of chaos ensues. So they decide to separate and go their own way. So basically, it's one character kind of goes the right way, the other not quite the right way. Glenn Ford decides to get a job with the local rancher, but William Holden's character falls in with some cattle rustlers. Now, the core of this story was basically this big cattle drive that's going to take place to Abilene. So the events of one going one way, one going the other, all kind of converge on this one event. And there is also kind of a brief romantic subplot that takes place with the actress Claire Trevor. Both of these guys fall in love with her. You got to watch the movie to see exactly how it turns out. It was a cute film. It's got some chuckles, it's got some shootouts, it's got cowboys, you know, rustling cattle and running from one building rooftop to another. And as, you know, as far as an old black and white Western goes, it was very entertaining. One of the characters, I just want to make a note of this because it was a little cringy to me. He was a dentist, and he wanted to actually pull out one of William Holden's teeth. And it's one of these things, you know, I get it, they kind of did it for jokes and stuff. And he was actually part of the rustling subplot, this dentist. But, you know, the thought of getting a tooth extracted in the Old West, you know, prior to like the era of Novocaine and keeping equipment clean and stuff like that, antibiotics, is a little cringy. In fact, there were a couple dental references, and anything with having references to dentistry of the Old West is enough to kind of make you go, ugh. But that's neither here nor there. It wasn't the main part of the story. It's basically a story about these two friends and their adventures as they kind of go in different paths. And what happens? How does this cattle drive to Abilene resolve? You got to watch the film to check it out. But it was enjoyable. And like I said before, to see both of these actors together I thought was really cool. William Holden and Glenn Ford both do a great job, and it's a film worth checking out.